Willie Nelson, if you don't like who is in there, vote them out. Welcome to Turnout Tuesday. The goal of these broadcasts, just to remind you, is to keep you informed and engaged heading into what will be one of the most consequential elections of our lifetimes. You okay? I mean, last week was a very, very rough week for all of us. And I just want to make sure that, a lot of people are demoralized. A lot of people are upset by what happened, and I get it. I feel exactly the same way. It has been an upsetting, demoralizing, agitating, awful, almost 2 years. But let me just say this. Take all of that anger, take all of that sense of desperation and unhappiness and channel it, if you possibly can, into getting out the vote. We'll talk about that. In fact, before we get started, an important update on voter registration. Today is the last day to register to vote in Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Mississippi, am I missing one? Yes, New Mexico, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee. Are you taking all these down? Texas, Hawaii, Illinois, Montana, Louisiana, Nevada, and Utah. How's that for memory? So, folks, if you live in one of these states, and I'm going to go over them very, very quickly once again, because it's important. Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky. I memorized them by going through the alphabet. Michigan, Mississippi, New Mexico, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Texas, Hawaii, Illinois, Montana, Louisiana, Nevada, and Utah. If you live in one of these states, please go to this website. All right? This is a very important, this is indivisible.turbovote.org. This will help you. If you aren't registered to vote, let's face it, you cannot make your voice heard this November. It's all about turnout, and turnout is intimately related to registration. So please make sure you are registered. Encourage your friends, your family, everyone you know to register too. Now, let's begin today. I hate to do this, but I've got to. This is the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh. There he is. And there are now his four Republican-appointed brethren on the court, Roberts, Alito, Gorsuch, and Thomas. That is a majority of the court. As you undoubtedly know, if you were a living, breathing person last week, the FBI completed its so-called investigation into the sexual assault allegations against Kavanaugh. But investigators were kept under tight control by the White House. They were not even allowed the agents to interview dozens of people who could provide additional information, including Kavanaugh, including Dr. Ford herself. The report then went to the Senate, where Mitch McConnell, who will go down in history as really one of the Americans who was least patriotic in American history, who put party over the public, party over nation, narrow partisanship over nation. Mitch McConnell allowed senators to view the report only in a secure location. He also refused to release the findings, what little they might have offered, to the public. Before the investigation was even complete, McConnell began a final vote on Kavanaugh. The whole process was nothing more than a political cover for Trump and McConnell to plow ahead with Kavanaugh's confirmation, a sham from beginning to end. And now McConnell is saying he doesn't rule out the possibility of confirming another justice in the election year 2020, despite the fact that McConnell, you remember, did not allow a vote on Merrick Garland, President Obama's pick, for almost a year, because he said, no, you can't in an election year. In an election year, a presidential election year, you can't have a vote. Mitch McConnell only knows one rule, and that is the rule of doing whatever is necessary to win. Not the Constitution, not precedent, not the rule of law, the rule of McConnell, the rule of Trump. But as I said in the start, this isn't a time for despair. We've got to stay focused like a laser on November 6th. With all three branches of government now under the effective control of one party, and that's what we have, and that party is under the effective control of a demagogue named Donald Trump, our democracy faces a clear and present danger. Unchecked and unbalanced, Trump will be even less constrained. Worse yet, Kavanaugh is a fierce partisan, we now know, with an expansive view of presidential power and executive privilege. Meanwhile, House and Senate Republicans have morphed into Trump sycophants and toadies, intimidated, spineless, opportunistic. The few of them who have dared call him on his outrages are not even running for re-election. So how are the constitutional imperatives of checks and balances to be salvaged, especially when they are so urgently needed? Friends, the only remedy is for voters to flip the House or Senate, or ideally both, on November 6th. For the sake of the values we hold dear and of the institutions of our democracy that our forebears relied on and our descendants will need, this can't be allowed. Now, here's the good news. Just a few months ago, pundits said it would be nearly impossible. In fact, don't even think about Democrats winning back the Senate. Well, now, the groundswell of activism around the country is putting more states into play. Consider a place where I was visiting yesterday, deep red Texas, where Congressman... No, that's not him. That's our president. Where Beto O'Rourke, Congressman Beto O'Rourke, is a statistical tie. He's in a statistical tie with Ted Cruz. Okay, this is Beto O'Rourke, and here is my... I think I did a pretty good Ted Cruz, don't you? O'Rourke has run a completely grassroots campaign, holding down town halls on Facebook Live, relying on a team of organizers to get out the vote, refusing to take money from super PACs. I did a kind of free-floating focus group in Texas yesterday. People are very excited about O'Rourke. Remember, this is all about turnout. It's all about enthusiasm. It's all about motivation. Who gets out to vote? O'Rourke's progressive message of universal health care, ending the war on drugs, investing in higher education, it's resonated in a generally conservative Texas. Women candidates are also leading the charge against Trump and McConnell in several key states to win back the Senate. Congresswoman Kristen Sinema holds a slim lead over her opponent in Arizona, Martha McSally, to take over Jeff Flake's Senate seat. In Nevada, Congresswoman Jackie Rosen could also defeat incumbent Republican Dean Heller. And there are a lot of other races. We'll talk about them next week. No matter how close these races are looking in the polls, the outcome will again be decided by turnout. If Doug Jones can win a Senate seat in Alabama last December, it is possible. We can flip the Senate. But it will require historic turnout. So here's a list of key Senate races. North Dakota, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, Indiana, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, and Missouri, depending upon where you live in the state. I'll do this again. North Dakota, Montana, Arizona, Nevada, Indiana, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, and Missouri. These are key. Now, others are key too, but these are key. If you live in any of these states or know of people who do, friends, family, anybody, make sure they are registered to vote and vote. In other words, you don't have to actually be in one of these states to have an influence there. Even if you know somebody, call them. Make sure they are activated. Now, I know how you're feeling. I mean, I am too. If you're mad, hurt, frustrated by Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation, you have every reason to be. But turn that energy toward the midterms right now. Here's what you can do right now to make a difference. Number one, encourage others to vote. If you're registered to vote, double check your registration and make sure you know where and how to cast your ballot. Check your state's early voting calendar. You might be able to vote today. Early voting is already underway in dozens of states. headcount.org/early voting calendar. Oh, wait a minute. This is the one. This is how you can check. vote.org/early-voting-calendar/. You get that? If you'd like to do even more, sign up to join an indivisible phone bank to encourage others to vote. And here's the address, the linkage. It's indivisible.org/phone bank/. You can do it. I urge you to. And now for your questions. Marianne Romero, does voting matter if all of the key districts are gerrymandered in your state? Well, yes, Marianne, it does matter because the more people who vote, even if it is a gerrymandered district, the greater the likelihood that the gerrymandering will be overcome. But even more important in the long term, the greater the likelihood that a state court or even the Supreme Court could rule that the gerrymandering and partisan gerrymandering is unconstitutional. Remember that what happened in Pennsylvania. So your vote still very much counts. Margaret Lindsay, could a future Democratic president increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court? Margaret, yes, theoretically. The Constitution doesn't say just 9 justices. Franklin D. Roosevelt did have a plan for increasing the number of justices because, as you may remember, you Supreme Court historians, the reality in 1935, 36, 37 was that a very conservative Supreme Court throughout much of the New Deal. And FDR threatened to pack the court. Here's the problem. A president that does try to tinker that way with the Constitution, and it's not directly tinkering with the Constitution, but it's taking on an institution of our democracy, suffers. 1937, when Franklin D. Roosevelt made that threat, that really marked the high point of his influence. Public opinion turned against him then, so it's dangerous for a president to start playing with the Supreme Court. Sarah Mills, will people give up hope and not vote now that Kavanaugh is confirmed? Sarah, I hope not. I mean, look, we now have 3 branches of government, all under the control of the Republican Party, and that party is now uniquely, outrageously under the control of Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to the United States and to the world. If that doesn't motivate people, even if they are not Democrats, even if they are independents, even if they're Republicans, if that doesn't motivate people to vote, I don't know what will. There was something called checks and balances. We are now unchecked. Trump is unchecked. And we know that Trump is unbalanced. Bill Pompeo, can the Democrats impeach Kavanaugh? Well, yes, under the Constitution, the Democrats, if they would take back the House, could impeach Kavanaugh. But remember, to actually remove somebody from office, you've got to get through the Senate as well. You need a 2/3 vote of the Senate, and it would be almost impossible unless there is absolutely clear, convincing evidence, irrefutable, that an official of the United States, like Donald Trump or perhaps Kavanaugh, did something that was absolutely, clearly illegal. But I don't think it's going to happen. That's not the reason to vote for Democrats. The reason to vote for Democrats, again, is to put a constraint, to begin to push back. Jennifer Heath, final question. How can I encourage my family to vote if my relatives are conservatives? Jennifer, for one thing, it is very important for you to engage your relatives, even if they're very conservatives, to talk to them about what is happening in the country. Don't start with Trump. Don't start with labels. Put labels, put Democrats, Republicans, liberal, conservative, put the labels apart and aside. Just talk about kitchen table economics. Talk about how you are really doing. Donald Trump says everybody's doing great. Well, you know that's not the case. Most people are struggling. They may have jobs, but the jobs are lousy paying jobs. There's less and less health care. There is less and less pension benefits. More and more people are in insecure jobs. Talk about what's happening. Talk about what's really happening. Talk about where power is in this country. Talk about how power is being exercised by the moneyed interests inside corporations, inside Wall Street. And when you talk to your relatives, put aside those labels, talk about reality, and get them mobilized around what's really happening in this country. The other thing, Jennifer, again, is checks and balances. If your conservative relatives believe in the constitutional principle of checks and balances, they are going to want to check Donald Trump. Which brings us to the end of our time together. A special thank you again to Andrew Santana and Shada Ezemian. And thank you to all of you for keeping up the good fight. I'll see you next week.